Welcome to the Profit Answer Man, Matthew Pezon. It's great to have you join us today.
Thanks for having me, Rocky.
Excited for our conversation. Can you share a little bit about yourself and your business?
Sure. So I am from the fourth generation of engineers. And so when I started out in my career, I went to chemical engineering school and I was always motivated to do well financially. And so when I got into the workforce, it was 2010, depths of the GFC, and I was put in an IT role because there weren't many roles available. And my first boss told me I was the worst employee he ever had and the company should fire me. And it just crushed me because I had 50 grand of debt, student loans, got a car. And I knew that at that point that I had studied and gotten my education, but that one boss could make or break my career. And I just didn't want someone to have that control over me. I wanted to do other things, bigger things, and one person could have cut me, right? And I didn't like that vulnerability. So I knew I wanted to start my own business someday, thanks to that one boss. And at the time I was crushed, but now I could give him a hug, right? So
What was it that drove him up the wall, or was he just scared?
well, I wasn't that good at the job actually. So there was
Oh,
and part of the reason was there was no procedure in place to build these servers. There were no work instructions. There was just kind of tribal knowledge in this group, and if I was asking questions, I was bothering them, or how come you didn't know this? And it made me realize the importance of processes, procedures, continuing education for my employees that I now implement because I don't want anyone to feel like how I felt. And but the truth is, I wasn't good at my job because I didn't have the resources to be successful.
it's not unusual, you
I
know.
don't think
And
it
it's
is. Yeah.
it's surprising they didn't have a training program or at least some sense of mentorship to help you to be able to do what they wanted you to do, which creates another problem because, if everything is tribal knowledge, somebody in the tribe leaves, the information disappears, and now you can't replace it. So now the next person comes along, they don't know what they're doing. Everyone else's productivity goes down because they're helping the new guy if they're nice enough to, and then somebody else leaves because they got fed up, and now you have no knowledge, right? Like, no wonder businesses struggle so much.
The ironic part was that it was a career development program. So I just think that the company, it's a large multinational company and they're supposed to rotate the employees. It was such a difficult time economically. I think they wanted good people because they didn't want to shut off the hiring taps completely, but they needed somewhere to put them. So I don't fault the company. I just think that the group wasn't prepared to have me. So
Was your boss's name Dilbert?
no, but I see what you did there.
So, how did you learn about profit first?
Well, so by making mistakes, I mean, I started buying real estate in 2014. I spent 3 years getting out of debt, and I did a Fulbright scholarship. So when I came back after business school in Spain, I came back to the States and I started buying rental properties. And I only knew what a cash flow statement was in theory for some large company and so for some publicly traded stock or something. I didn't know about bookkeeping or anything like that. So when I got started, I really had to figure it out, and it was okay for the first couple of deals, but I was living deal to deal. And as I started to grow the company, I realized I needed to get more intentional with my financial management, understand my books, and why am I doing all of this? And so I lost $5,000 on a flip. I made mistakes and I realized I needed better controls in place so that I could make good business decisions.
And so, how did Profit First help with that?
Well, so Profit First really came into play over the last couple of years because I was trying to figure out, well, so I'm buying these properties, and as rates started to go up, I wasn't able to do as many cash out refinances. So I needed to generate cash for the new purchases. And now all the money I was putting into deals, I wasn't getting back out, and I needed to sell off properties to get cash for the new properties. And so the interest rates went up and the model shifted. It wasn't as easy to cash out refinance anymore. And I had to get smarter with how I managed finances.
So what changed then by like
So
using these
yeah,
principles?
well, so I came to a point where, because I couldn't get all the cash out from a rental property, I either had to, one, limit the number of deals that I did because I only had so much cash, or two, learn which properties weren't as profitable so that I could sell them and recycle the capital into more marketing. So I needed to get crystal clear on, okay, what's the cash cycle of this flip that I'm doing, or what's the cash cycle? I'm going to put out all this money. How long is it going to take to get it back? And as rates went up, I had to get smarter and really dig into what's my cash situation month to month. I mean, if we're spending 50 grand on marketing and we bought two flips, but we're not going to sell them for 6 months later. Well, that's 50 grand for 6 months I have to come up with. So what am I going to do? Otherwise, I have to stop marketing. And so that's when I had to really, when rates went up, is when I had to start really tracking this stuff.
And so just because not everyone's in the real estate business, I see this in multiple businesses, right? Whether it's buying a house, which is essentially inventory, and then you're doing work on it when you're flipping it. Obviously, you're making it better. It's the same thing as buying raw materials or buying something out of China, waiting 2 months for the container to arrive, putting it on a shelf, hoping it sells in 2 months. And then the same thing, you have a cash conversion cycle. The other thing you talked about is the 80-20 rule, right? Where are my profits coming from? Which houses are driving my profits? And the same thing, companies have 5, 10 products, services, different things. Which are the things that, if you make the investment, are going to provide the return? So if I'm a business owner and I've got 50,000 and I've got to bring in inventory, I should look and go, well, which inventory moves the fastest? Which one has the best margin? What's the right mix of those? And how am I going to survive putting out $50,000 until the actual sale is made 6 months later and I get my whatever, 100, 200, 300,000 back? And then, of course, the one area that I think everyone struggles with is marketing. You're spending 50 grand on marketing. You better be getting stuff in that allows you to be profitable, not only to cover the 50,000 marketing, cover all your overhead, pay you, and then give you a profit. And if you don't understand what all those numbers are, it's really easy to burn through money. And
Oh
with
yeah.
marketing, if something changes, right? If something changes and you don't catch it quick, you're out 150 grand in your case in 3 months before you even know something went wrong.
Well, that's right. And so if I'm looking through the rear view mirror and not through the front of through the dashboard, I could burn through cash quickly. And another thing that happened that caused me to really implement the profit first mentality is around the overhead that you mentioned, because now I have people on staff. We have a minimum burn rate of cash that we have to support for all these folks doing their roles. And so, okay, well, what marketing channels are working? So we're doing Google ads, we're doing Facebook ads, we're doing direct mail marketing, we're doing some digital ads, we're tracking people around the internet, and all these different lists. And then within direct mail, is it the probate lists that are working? Is it the foreclosure list? So what's working? And I know I'm saying real estate specific things right now, but it's really for any business. For the marketing that you're doing, is it effective? And not just am I closing sales, but how dense are those sales? So I'd rather close $100,000 deal than three $10,000 deals. So you can't just look at volume; you have to look at the true rate of return. So the profit first mentality and system became essential for me as costs went up and as we added marketing channels, we added employees. We just had to be clear on our data.
You do. And I think that's the one thing that many business owners struggle with is clarity on data. And I will say, I've worked with a lot of real estate investors, and the ones who are best are the ones who actually have forward looking dashboards. And I can go in and I can see clear as day how much was spent on advertising by channel, how many appointments came out, how those appointments then converted into sales, and then how much profit was made on each of those sales. When we've got that kind of data, then a couple things happen. A, we know where to focus our energy, where to pull back, and where to double down. And the other thing is we start to learn what messaging works or where we should spend our time and which one's bringing us the most profitable deals. Because you might get 6 leads, but again, some of them might not be so great and some of them might be phenomenal. And then the other thing is, by keeping a pulse, people don't realize this stuff changes on a dime. And if you're not watching closely, you'd be shocked at how quickly things can go south.
Oh, everything you said there, Rocky, is gold. And just to piggyback onto it, we're also measuring, okay, so if we put $10 in, how many into that marketing channel, how many dollars are we getting out, right? Because we could think we're doing deals and maybe we are, but if the profit on that deal only offsets the marketing, we made nothing, right? So we need to have that level of clarity per marketing channel. And it's just it's something that we're working through every day. And you mentioned forward facing information. We're implementing daily KPI metrics. I want to see how many calls each acquisitions manager is making per day, each lead coordinator is making per day, how long they're on the phone that day, and how many calls is it, so their average talk time. And if they're not on the phone for a minimum of 2 hours a day, we're just not going to close the deals because they're not calling the people to generate the interest in the sale. So that's just our forward looking metric. How many calls today? And then if they're not making the calls, why? Is it a training issue? Do we have a lead flow issue? We discovered that we inadvertently, this is another mistake I made, we misclassified certain leads. And so we hadn't reached out to 250 leads since June. And so at the time we're recording this, that's 8 months, right? Why? I don't know. And so we had a training issue, and it resulted in 250 people that have properties that previously contacted us not hearing from us. That's a massive sales problem. So I'm not saying that we're perfect at this, but we're really trying to implement checks and balances with our KPIs so that we catch things a lot sooner. Because there was some meat on the bone there that we let go to waste.
And that's correct. And if you're paying a lot for leads and you're spending that much on marketing, you can't afford not to make sure that every single lead is followed up. The other thing that's happening in the world today, and we just did an episode on this, is if someone contacts you, especially in the world of real estate, not so much your space, but when it comes to real estate agents, the stats show the first real estate agent to call them back and make an appointment is the one that gets the deal, which means speed is everything. And we talked about on that show how to build AI systems, how to build chatbots, how to build captures, how to create automatic appointment scheduling using AI so that you could immediately get the appointment, because the first one to get the appointment is the one who's most likely going to win.
I love that. And one of the phrases that we say at my company is speed to lead. We're always saying speed to lead, speed to lead. And we have an answering service that when someone enters their information on our website, they're calling immediately. It's a Zapier connection right to their dialer, right? So we're just getting in front of them and getting out to the property as soon as possible. It's essential.
It is. Now, since you went through that whole thing where they didn't teach you at your job that you were at, and you went through that kind of a struggle, how have you done things differently in your company to make sure that everybody is on the same page?
Well, that's a constant everyday effort, and our processes can change in time. We'll add a role, and now a new role is interfacing with another role that we had, and we didn't update our procedures. So it's a continuous process. So I'm making sure. So for each role, so I would say number one, define the personality type. So we use predictive index, but define what it will take in that role to be successful. Like, what type of a person do you need? Do you need an analytical person? Do you need a salesperson? What skills are needed? And build a role profile. Because I was not a good fit for that first role. My skill set wasn't a good fit. It was a complete mismatch. So first, we're using predictive index to build a role profile. Then we're making our onboarding. We're really building out our onboarding process. Like, what's the person's personality? Then we have a robust interview process, and then we actually do test projects, half-day test projects, to make sure that they will be a good fit. Because we don't want them to tell us about their work. We want to see how they work. So so we have a clear role profile with clear KPIs, and then with the personality assessment. Then we really vet those candidates based on their personality assessment, their interview, their work. Then once we have a match of role and person, then we have a 30, 60, 90-day onboarding process that it's built out, but we have to do a better job following it, admittedly. But we have assessments at each phase. And so I hired an operations person to help me with this. So at 30 days, you need to be able to do XYZ. 60 days, you need to be able to do XYZ. 90 days, you need to be able to do XYZ, so that we're clear on what the expectations are. So we haven't had a newer hire recently, so we haven't really fully done the whole process, but that's the level of granularity that we're getting to, so we don't have those mismatches like I had with that first job.
I think for a lot of business owners, creating these is a daunting task.
It is.
How are you able to okay, so how do you make it easier? Like, how do you overcome that struggle?
So I don't do 95% of what I just said. So I have someone he's my EA, my virtual assistant, my executive assistant. He sits in the Philippines, and he drives all of this stuff. So I'll train one employee myself, which I would have to do anyway. And he will, using we use Read AI for the meetings, and it'll type up a synopsis and summary, and then you kind of take that and he makes a procedure for that task. And then the employee themselves will make a procedure for that task. So I'm initially investing a lot of time and effort to train, which any business owner would have to do. But then the documents themselves are written using AI and virtual assistants. And the assessments are created, and then my assistants learn the process, and then they can train the next cohort of employees that come in, because now they know what to do. So it's front loaded by me, but I'm not doing the heavy lifting for creating the processes, procedures, and documents. They do that.
And I think that's an important thing. The business owner doesn't need to do everything. They need to find somebody to do it for them. We've had episodes where we've talked about getting EAs, getting an EA in the Philippines is one country. They seem to do well. Every country has their own flavor of what they're good at. So like, I hear India is really good at tech. The Philippines are really good at EAs and doing
BPO
that
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. South Africa's got certain skill sets in a little bit higher level. Eastern Europe has tremendous amount of assets for different things. And also South America. The nice thing with South America is your time zone. Like, you're equal to the US. The Philippines, India, you're about half time zone off. But there are many of them that will work to US time zone, or you give them asynchronous activity and figure out how best to do it. But it's amazing how much help you can get, and help at a very reasonable wage. And the other thing is, you tell me, do you have American workers as well as Philippines?
I do. The acquisitions managers are based locally just because they have to go to the properties, but the rest of the team sits in the Philippines. It's 6 individuals.
How do you find the quality of work?
So the quality of work is good if there's a defined process that says do this, 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 and this. Things that are left up to interpretation tend to not go well. I assume so. The 250 leads that I mentioned, I assumed that the group would be their lead coordinators. They would be looking in the system for leads they haven't talked to and calling them. Like that seemed to me like a reasonable assumption. It wasn't a reasonable assumption because I should have provided a report that says, click this button and it will show you the leads that haven't heard from us in 30 days. That would have been a more reasonable thing to do. And I just didn't know that. So the quality is good. They speak great English. They need training and mentorship like anyone else, and like I needed when I was starting. It's just that you need to be crystal clear and define and provide a definition of done for what the tasks are and give tools so that they can do their jobs.
And it's true. It doesn't matter what the role is. You have to put the time in to train people. And again, that's another struggle for many small business owners is, how do I find the time to do all of this? One of the things we chatted about was how reserves, which Profit First is great at building reserves, can help you through tougher times or just through the ups and downs of normal business. What have you found to be the case?
So this Profit First was a game changer for me relative to reserves because for many years, and I was working full time as a chemical engineer, and I was trying to buy the next property and achieve financial freedom and all the things that people are looking to do, why they get into real estate. I was rolling funds from this deal into the next deal, and I was still getting banked. It wasn't like I was, I didn't have reserves. The banks were still lending money. So, but I could have added some additional reserves, and I could have sold some properties earlier just to have an additional cash cushion. And now I do that. I sell properties in advance. I don't get a deal and then look for properties, or which property should I sell to do the deal. Now I just sell properties, have the cash, and I sleep better at night. I have 3 kids now. I think that was a big thing that changed for me. I have 3 kids under 3. I didn't want to take big risks, and I'd rather just sell the properties, take the profit, and do another deal if it comes around.
Nice. And I haven't done flips in a while, but our biggest thing when we were doing flips was we would actually price. Now this is prior to COVID, right? When houses didn't just sell because they went on the market. We would price our houses just a shade below so that we could move them quickly. Because the moment we were done, we wanted them sold, and we wanted them sold in 2-3 weeks. We wanted our cash out. We didn't want to have to maintain it, deal with it. And with real estate, the longer it sits, it used to be, the harder it becomes to sell. So we priced them to sell quick and just grab, why sit there when you've got, 6 figures tied up in inventory? Why sit there and putz over 2 or 3 grand? Like,
right.
We made enough money. Let's move this and let's go make the next one. And that was a big part of it, because the longer it sits, the more the risk goes up. So why not just be done? And you have your carrying costs. That's all the stuff, when you do real estate, people look at how much did I buy it for and how much did I sell it for? Oh, look at all the money I made. Well, yeah, but how much did you put into it? How much did you pay in taxes and electric and landscaping and lawn mowing? And people don't track all of that other stuff to get a true picture of what the actual profits look like.
Well, right. And what I started realizing over the years was the opportunity cost of doing that deal when I could have done another deal. So even if I made 10 grand on this flip, let's say, well, that I made, but now I tied up that X amount of dollars in doing this renovation, and it was just sitting there for 3, 4, 5, 6 months. Then the property needs to go on the market. You finally sell it 9 months later. Well, what deal didn't I do because my capital was tied up in that flip? So I've become more selective with the deals that I do these days. And maybe I'm wrong for doing that because you can sell almost anything these days by putting it on the MLS. There's just no inventory. However, I want the deals that I do to make a lot of sense, because if I'm not doing this deal, well, then I'll do the next deal. But if I don't have the cash to do it, then I'm stuck. And if I do a bad deal, my cash is stuck in that one. It's a long cash cycle. The cash conversion cycle is long, especially if the profit's low. So I've been more selective recently.
And that's what we look at opportunity costs. But I think for a lot of people, you don't always calculate the missed opportunity cost. You don't see it, you don't calculate it, you never touch it. And so it just becomes a number and you can't feel it. And that's the one thing I found. You have to feel the pain to understand what's happening. And unfortunately, that's the way it is.
When my team and I signed a deal. So when my wife had our twins in September, we signed a deal almost a few days after that I didn't fully vet because there was so much going
Right.
on at that time. Yeah. And so it's probably going to be a break even sale, but it's going to take 5 months to renovate. And it's just, wow, what could I have done? So I'm not looking at opportunity cost from the deals that I miss and didn't do. It's what are the deals that I did that I shouldn't have done. And that's what I'm looking at. We're really trying to avoid those situations. And one squeaked by my defenses and radar last year, but I try to never let that happen, because it's just, if you're making nothing on it, what's the point?
And that's where the emotions, and I notice this especially with real estate. Oh, we'll figure it out later. No, you won't figure it out later. Profit in real estate is made on the purchase. You screw up the purchase, you're just going to have to work harder to fix it. But you really, really, really have to be able to make the money on the purchase. And then it's the ability to see what others can't see. Where's there an opportunity? So like now, mind you, we were doing this back in 13 and 14. Real estate was still pretty depressed back then. And around here, nobody's buying a 2-bedroom. Like, nobody wants to talk to you. We made it known we will look at every 2-bedroom that comes on the market. Because what we found was, even though it was a 2-bedroom, a lot of times there was a way to make it a 3-bedroom. And that is where you pick up tremendous value. Or when they stole all the copper, right? Because that was happening back then. Those were tremendous deals because everyone else would massively discount it. No retail buyer could buy it because they couldn't get a mortgage. We could fix the plumbing issue for a couple grand, and
Right.
everything else became pure profit. So it's like, figure out where these opportunities exist and then market to them. And so we became the people who would handle these types of things. If you know how to handle mold, which is not as bad as people think it is, right? It becomes an opportunity for you to pick up those types of properties. And that happens a lot. So it's just, these principles will apply regardless of the type of business you're in. It's all the same concepts. You just got to figure out the universal principles and apply it to you and your business. That's all.
Very well said, Rocky. Yeah.
If people would like to learn more about you and what you do and connect, what's the way for them to do that?
Sure. They can reach me at my website, pezonproperties.com. We have a form there. You could just fill it out. Love to connect about real estate. And yeah, that's the best way, on our website.
Out of curiosity, like, let's say somebody wants to invest in real estate, but they don't want to deal with it. Do you guys get involved in that and help them?
So I don't have a third-party management company, or I'm not a broker. So typically not, but I have referred a lot of people to the managers that I use if they're looking to find boots on the ground, because that's the key. It's a local business.
Okay, cool. Well, we will put that in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Rocky. I enjoyed our conversation.
Thanks for listening to this unedited video of the Profit Answer Man podcast. If you'd like to catch the full episode and learn more about what we do, check us out at profitcomesfirst.com. We also go through the Profit First book in each and every chapter in the beginning episodes of the podcast, so check those out as well. Thanks for listening, and here's to you having a more profitable and growing business.